what makes it different, what makes it unique, using an annually agriculturally renewable feedstock for a building material. Most everything that goes into the built environment is heavily extractive, right? Whether it's a forestry product or something that's mined out of the ground, a petroleum-based product. Unlike the wall that's behind us right now, that's how we build in the United States, right? It's a lot of low-cost, high-volume products that are not in any way regenerative.
Well, we were trying to make hemp charcoal with your ceramics kiln and a stainless steel milk jug that I got off of Amazon. And wait, we can't tell too many details.
No.
We don't want to give away the proprietary technology.
People can fill in the blanks.
Yeah. It got a little out of hand.
The syn gases began to ignite.
Shooting flames out of the top of the kiln and filling the room.
Mind you, it's in a room.
Yeah, it's inside. It's not outside.
Good time.
Why did we? Oh, we just had fans in the door.
Yeah.
Why? I don't know. I don't know why we thought that would be not that smoky.
Some soft ventilation.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Cameron, thanks for sitting down here, and we're here at the Airbnb, and this is a hemp wall behind us here.
Believe it or not.
That there's a stone wall, historic stone farmhouse wall, and then we stripped all the plaster off, and then you had a workshop where you installed hempcrete, and then it was plastered over with hemp as well in the plaster. So it's only appropriate that we use this as a backdrop.
Yeah, and that's, I think, the cool thing about what we do is that sort of, in a way, like art, this wall looks effortless, right? Mm-hmm. Like it totally doesn't tell the story just by looking at it of how much work it was to strip all the gunk off of it and then get everybody in here. And it was actually Damien that sprayed it. I don't know if you remember that. Yeah. Yeah, my business partner from France came for the training, and then he's the one that actually sprayed the hemp in. Yeah. So, and I think it was me and your dad that plastered it, wasn't it?
Yeah, I guess
not a
so.
plaster, but
none of us are, but
pretty proud of this wall.
Yeah, it turned out all right. So you are the founder and CEO of Americhanvre. Is that how you? Did I say it correctly? I'm not. My French is not
close enough.
My French is not so good.
Yeah.
Which is a hemp company in many different ways. So, can you explain some of the things you do? You guys do. You sell hemp hurd. You import hemp hurd from France, and you sell it here in the U.S.
Yep.
You have equipment that is proprietary equipment that you worked with Damien from France on to develop and modify, and you distribute that in the U.S. You do hempcrete installation in new construction, mostly some renovation type construction. And you also do a little bit of native ecosystem restoration work on the side as a different project. But maybe you could start by describing what hemp hurd. Let's start by talking about hemp and hemp hurd and
sure
what exactly that is, because most people probably know what hemp is, but they don't really understand the different elements of the hemp plant and where the different parts go. And
so the hurd is the inner woody core of the true fiber industrial hemp stalk. So again, we're talking real commodity fiber industrial hemp, non-cannabinoid, right? Not CBD, not THC. This is grown specifically for industrial uses, right? And it looks very much like an industrial field crop, right? You wouldn't be able to tell the difference between this and let's say a stand of wheat or rye at its highest level, right? So It's planted the same way. It's an agricultural commodity. And we are using the inner woody core again, which is traditionally a byproduct, right? So this is something that historically was actually discarded right back into the field. And it's one of the reasons why hemp was not necessarily a crop that you had to rotate as often. So the interesting thing is that the herd is 75% approximately of the above ground plant, right?
Oh, yeah.
So everything else is the fiber, the seed, the flower. That's 25% of the plant. We're using 75% of it. So if you can imagine, historically, when the crop was brought in, it was hand broken in the field, right? So they would cut the stalks, stand them up in shocks, which are bundles, right? And then a team would go out into the field and actually break the herd right off of the fiber. And the fiber would come out of the field, but that herd was either left to be redistributed or burned in the field. So again, this is traditionally an agricultural byproduct that we're using.
So the hemp herd is like what, if we're using a tree as an analogy, it's like the wood of the tree. And
basically, yeah.
And then the bark of the tree in the hemp plant is the bast fiber.
Correct.
And that's what historically was what most people were after when they were trying to use it to make fabrics or ropes or sails for boats or things like that.
Any number of things. Yeah.
I didn't realize that they mostly just discarded the herd.
Yeah. There's actually a really good book, The History of Hemp in Kentucky. It was written by a professor at a university in Kentucky in the 1950s who realized, and this is 25, 30 years after full-scale prohibition, he realized that the last farmers living who had worked with this crop were soon to be gone, you know? So he went around and he actually documented the fiber industrial hemp industry in Kentucky, which at one point, Kentucky hemp was the gold standard in the world, really, for all of those industrial uses that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
And they even did a version of silvopasture, if you will, where they had, or silviculture, where they had the fiber industrial hemp stalks growing into forested areas where they also had animals, grazing, ruminants living in these areas. So again, it was one of these crops that they didn't necessarily rotate the way that we understand crop rotation in regenerative agriculture today, right? Mm-hmm. And I believe part of the reason is that so much of the crop was left in the field. So it's part of our history, right? Like we're a few days away from the 4th of July here, and you can't really understand American agriculture without hemp involved from the beginning, right? You could pay your taxes to the British with this crop. Why is that?
Really?
Because it was very important for their navy. How did the British Empire colonize the entire world? They did it with their navy. What do you need for your navy? You need rope and rigging and sails. It was high naval technology. So and that persisted all the way up until the 1850s when the cotton gin came along. And I think that's one of the things we'll talk about later for sure. But my position, I think yours too, when looking at fiber industrial hemp, is borderline plant agnostic, right? We're not just hemp cheerleaders. We're not interested in it just because it's cannabis, right?
Yeah.
And I think that often there are these, I call them hempster myths, right? It was the William Randolph Hearsts of the world who assassinated hemp and cannabis. Mm-hmm. Honestly, it was the cotton gin. The cotton gin came along and changed the entire landscape. Up until that point, all of our textiles were long line linens like flax or hemp. And then the cotton gin came along and revolutionized the American approach to textiles, right? All of a sudden, we started working with a much shorter fiber, one that was a lot easier to harvest. And that is still the way that America does textiles, right? Yeah. We still, to this day, are focused on short fiber textiles. So it has been, again, almost 200 years now, where we have not We have not grown plants like hemp, bast fiber crops for textiles. And I think that's one of the growing pains that you and I have both experienced in this industry, where we're trying to build our own businesses, but we're also building this industry around them as well. And that's,
Yeah,
a challenge.
it's hard to resurrect
Yeah.
an industry that is, of significant scale. Like it's easy to underestimate the scale of like the textile industry or
Right.
the building materials industry, and trying to bring a new input feedstock into one of those industries is a pretty big task when when that industry has been maybe not forgotten but abandoned for
Basically.
almost a
Yeah.
century.
Yep.
So we have while meanwhile other countries have continued to grow
They never
hemp,
stopped. Yeah.
and so they already have all that infrastructure in place, and they already have inputs into the global economy that so they have economy of scale already, and we're
Right.
trying to start from zero.
Yeah.
So that being said, why would you do this? Why did you start doing hemp? Why would someone do that?
Well, zooming out a bit, what makes it different? What makes it unique? Using an annually agriculturally renewable feedstock for a building material. Most everything that goes into the built environment is heavily extractive, right? Whether it's a forestry product or something that's mined out of the ground, a petroleum-based product. Unlike the wall that's behind us right now, that's how we build in the United States, right? It's a lot of low cost, high volume products that are not in any way regenerative.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what we have to keep in mind when we think about using a crop like fiber industrial hemp. And it is not unique in that way. There are other crops very much like it that are annually and agriculturally renewable, right? Flax, straw, sugarcane bagasse can be used to do the same thing that we're using, to do the same thing that we're doing now. Rice hulls, there are many different vegetal aggregates that can be used, even with our own machine. I always say that the Easy machine doesn't know that it's fiber industrial hemp that we're putting into it. It could literally be anything. Any appropriately sized vegetal aggregate. So that's when the discussion turns to bio-based, I think. And I think that is one of those rare bipartisan discussions that you can have these days, where you can speak to support for American agriculture, increase domestic self-reliance, at the same time knowing that you're supporting regenerative agriculture and carbon sequestration and all of those other things, right? So it speaks to everyone. And I believe that buildings construction offers one of the greatest opportunities to have an impact for both sides of that discussion, right? To support the American farmer, introduce a new crop into the American farming lexicon, if you will, and then to also have the ability to speak to carbon sequestration and decarbonization of the built environment. I think that's really powerful. And there's not really a good argument against it, right? There's not really what's the devil's advocate argument against using a crop that we can grow right here in the Butter Valley on your acreage and then install in a wall on the same property. I mean, there isn't really an argument.
Yeah, you can't really do that with like corn and soybeans.
Right.
Yeah, that is a cool economic model, I guess you could call it, of being able to grow
your home.
Building materials regionally. I mean, you can do that with straw bale houses, things like that.
Yeah.
But that is, I want to get into some of the work that you've done to make that more possible.
Yep.
But I'd like to hear a little bit more about the decision that you made to get into this, because you were working before kind of in a career of native plant native plant cultivation,
Right.
native plant nursery, and you're just ready to get out of there.
Well, the attraction, I think, to me from my former career till now, a lot of similarities for sure. Again, like you said, I was working at a native plant nursery. We did a lot of ecological restoration work, storm water management, stream bank stabilization, private land management, converting non-native species and landscapes back to more pollinator friendly and regenerative landscapes with native plants. But you have to go back a little bit further to my college career, which was I have a Bachelor of Fine Art with a focus in ceramics.
Yeah.
And so when I first came back to the area, my wife and I are originally from Pennsylvania, but when I first came back to the area, I worked at the Moravian Pottery and Tile Works in Doylestown. I got an apprenticeship there. And it was shortly after the financial collapse in 2008, right? So there weren't many opportunities.
Yeah.
Especially not for a kid coming out of college with a pottery degree. And I really badly wanted to work there. I think my life would be very different had the timing of things been a little bit shifted. I'd probably still be working there. You and I would probably have never met. I probably wouldn't care or know what hemp or hempcrete is.
Yeah. Making tile.
I'd be making tile.
Yeah.
At a working history museum.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a working history museum, Moravian Tile Works in Bucks County, Pennsylvania.
Yep.
And they make these really beautiful ceramic tiles there in the traditional way, and it's a very unique place.
Yep.
And they're functional, like they're still a functioning business and producing tile. It's not cheap.
The floor of the state capitol building in Harrisburg is Moravian tile.
Yeah.
And when you find it in a high-end home in Bucks County, it's very desirable.
Yeah.
Right. And so in wanting to stay closer to Bucks County, I found the job at the native plant nursery.
Yeah.
Right. And so we were selling a lot of plants into New York City, a lot of plants going into rooftop gardens and container gardens and the High Line, for example. We sold a lot of plants into that project. And I realized that there was an appetite for native plants in container gardens. That was sort of the cutting edge of rooftop and container gardens, right? Using plants that are appropriate for the pollinators, creating pollinator hallways, if you will, into urban areas. And I wanted to unite that with my previous experience of making handmade tile, right? So this is the long way around how I found I kind of stumbled into it. And so there's an organization called Limeworks in Telford, PA.
Yeah.
And so in doing my research, I wanted to make planter boxes. I wanted to put handmade tile on them. I found Limeworks, and they actually had a pre-bagged hempcrete binder, and that was shocking to me. I just learned about hempcrete, looked it up, thought, wow, this is really cool. Made the same mistake that everybody does hearing that word, and thought, okay, well then that's a concrete substitute.
Yeah.
It's not. But I took a workshop at Limeworks, and in the course of that workshop, I was the only one that took it. $600 for 3 days. I was the only one that showed up, and they ran it anyway because they wanted to insulate this building that they had been set up to insulate. In the course of that workshop, they realized I was capable, and they actually proposed to me, hey, we get a lot of inquiries for this work because we sell this binder. Would you like to be a recommended installer?
Nice.
And
they were just ready to hand it off to you.
Well, they have a program.
Jobs.
They have a program like that because they work in historic masonry repair. So when you have a historic building and you need a very specific skill set, they'll recommend a mason for you. And so they have a list sort of.
So are there is hempcrete a historic thing in the US as well?
No.
Not really.
No, but just like this wall that we're sitting in front of, it works very well in harmony with historic structures, right?
Yeah.
With lime plasters, with the finishes that are applied in restoration.
But it is a historic building material in European countries.
Going back to about the late 1970s, I think you find the first examples specifically of what we're doing. Now, hemp and lime have been documented throughout human history. They've been next to each other for as long as we have been conscious.
Yeah.
There's caves in India where they found frescoes that survived for centuries because they had hemp fiber mixed with the plaster.
Really?
And that prevented them from being eaten by the insects and things like that. So many examples like that throughout human history where it's clear that hemp and lime have been side by side for a long time. Now, specifically what we're doing, the earliest examples I would say are the late 1970s in Europe.
Yeah, well, let's get into that next. Because I want to tease out the process of what you're actually doing, because I feel like it's still something that might be unclear to people. But finish your journey to hemp.
So that was it, really. Yeah. It was that experience at Limeworks and their suggestion, and I think at that point also I was ready for a change.
Yeah. And so you did just pick up jobs that they passed on them?
Actually, never. There was one client that never ended up doing their house that was sort of the genesis of that proposition from them.
It got the wheels turning.
But it got the wheels turning. That's when I started my LLC, and I think by the following year, that was 2018 when I took the workshop, by the following year, I had quit my job and gone full steam into this, supported by my wife, my lovely wife, and her good job and her benefits.
Yeah. So you just went headlong into it without a super clear plan, but you've always been very good at being really engaged in the hemp industry and involved in different organizations and industry groups and conferences and
participating.
You're very participatory. I have been less participatory, but I've always admired your. Every time I see you, you're on the phone with somebody, and it's not necessarily because you're closing a deal. It's because you're networking and just having those conversations, because there's an enormous amount of enthusiasm and interest in hemp as a building material and as a material for making clothing and fabrics and things like that. But the structure of your business is kind of threefold. Maybe you're importing hemp from France because their hemp industry never stopped, and so they have well-established hemp cooperatives over there of farmers producing thousands of acres of hemp. I don't think that everybody thinks of wine when they think of France, but and snobby food or whatever, but they're actually also producing thousands, if not tens of thousands of acres of hemp in France.
Yep. Yeah, and they never stopped. And as you said, the organization that we receive our hemp from is a 60-year-old farmer-owned cooperative. They've been focused on growing fiber industrial hemp for at least the last 40 years. Yeah, and I actually visited one of their farms, and I could have closed my eyes and been somewhere in Lancaster County. There was a New Holland round baler. There was a Harley rake.
Yeah.
It's not like they have technology at the farm level that is dramatically different than what we have here. What they do have is 40 years worth of a head start and government incentives for the inclusion of bio-based materials into a wide variety of different aspects of everyday life in France. So I think that's something obviously where they're a bit ahead of us. But yeah, I would say we are first and foremost a raw material, equipment, and installation service provider for this material specifically. So we've licensed the eReZ technology from my business partner in France, Damien. We're distributing it here now. We're building it here now. It's almost 100% Americanized, if you will, for lack of a better term, even down to the input materials. We're actually blending and bagging our binder here in Northampton now.
Yeah.
So very slowly crawling towards it. But the gap, the thing that's missing is access to the same quality of aggregate, which is the hempcrete here in the United States, right?
So the hempcrete is, I just want to make sure that people understand what it is that we're even talking about. The hempcrete is we've already established it's the interior of the stem of the
wood
plant.
chip. It's like a wood chip.
The wood chips. And then you have, just like concrete, which maybe people don't even realize the composition of concrete, you have a lime binder, which is a mined mineral.
Correct.
It's blended in such a way that it's applicable to this specific material, hemp. And you add water, you mix it all together to a certain recipe, and then you can either form it into shapes, or you can push it into walls by hand with trowels. And so typically you are going into a house that is just studded out, just framed out. There's no interior walls. The exterior walls are most likely on it, but there's just wood studs, the vertical pieces of the wall.
For new construction.
And then traditionally, it would have been, you would take scoops of it and push it into the wall and just squish it in there and then let it dry. And it's the thing called screeding, where you scrape it off. And then you have a nice flat wall that can either be plastered or drywalled or whatever, like a finished wall that people are used to. But the machine that you also sell and have helped innovate and develop, the Easy machine, automates that process.
Yeah, definitely. The traditional method that you described, we call cast in place. So you're using a pair of slip forms on either side of a frame. So the house is not built out of hempcrete, it's insulated with it. I think that's really important. We are an insulation company more so than we are a general contractor or a builder, right? So you have this pair of slip forms that create a void into which you place the material. And unlike concrete, you can move those forms right away, right? It doesn't have slump. It won't escape the forms. And so the innovation, that's very labor intensive, what I just described. Imagine hand packing this material into the wall and successive lifts going up the wall. I did it a couple times. It's very accessible. That's the one thing I will say about it.
It's low tech.
Low tech. You need basic carpentry tools and skills to pull it off. So it's very accessible, but it takes forever. And it's miserable work once you get past about chest height on the wall. So that's when I started to look for what was happening in Europe, in France in particular. What are the innovations that are happening? And so this system, the Easy system, solves what I saw to be one of the major problems, which is just the incredible amount of physical labor that's involved in installing it by hand. Now, you've done it with me. You've sprayed with me. There is no version of hempcrete that's quote unquote easy.
It's an arduous,
it's still
noisy. You're wearing all kinds of gear, safety gear, like ear protection, eye protection, and you're doing some kind of arduous physical labor, whatever part of the process you're in.
But it happens so much quicker. And so what you're describing is Damien's application of compressed air into this equation, right? So instead of having to form both sides of the wall, we have a temporary form on one side, and we use this machine basically to aspirate the material, right? We're using a large volume of compressed air. It's just a big vacuum.
It's a Venturi.
But there's a Venturi effect at the lance, but it's the binder that allows us to do what we do. So the binder really is Damien's innovation. It's specifically formulated to be lightweight enough to be aspirated down the tubes, but simultaneously sticky enough to stick to the wall.
To actually stay in the wall.
Build up, right?
Yeah. So and just to tease out the detail is that this is not a structural thing.
No.
There is not any structural hempcrete, because when people think about hempcrete, they're thinking more concrete, but
It's a terrible
it's
word
not.
for it.
It's not a structural thing. It's
No.
better to think, and the way I often describe it is that it's like blow-in insulation, essentially.
Like a dense
It's
packed cellulose, if
it's
you will.
it's
Yeah.
more than that, but that's a way to kind of put it in layman's terms, that you're basically blowing in this insulation vertically into the wall. But it's not crazy chemicals.
No.
It's not, glass fibers that are
Right.
getting in people's lungs and
Irritant.
air,
Yeah.
and it's also, but it's plant based.
Yep.
It's produced by farmers who
Yep.
can, it's a renewable resource.
Right.
You can get into whether you think the mining of the lime is sustainable or not.
Yeah.
But
especially with our system, it's such a small proportion of it. We're using, it's not even 1-to-1. It's 50 pounds of hemp almost to about 30 pounds of binder. And the active carbon sequestration happens in the field, right? So the benefit is all in taking that stalk as it grows in 90 days and then trapping it and locking it away in the wall for 50, 100 years. We don't know because we haven't been through it. But so to your point, it is a self-supporting masonry-like non-structural insulation and walling material.
Yeah.
It's the best way to describe it. And it replaces several different systems within a traditional wall assembly. Pink insulation, drywall, plywood, all of those things are removed. We're installing this material, finishing it on the inside, typically with a lime plaster, like what you see here. But on the exterior, we've found many ways, and I think this is to one of your questions here. I think this is one of the ways that we found success, is that the Easy system made us more portable, made the material more portable into modern construction, right? Like you've seen the houses that we've done. They don't look like Hobbit houses. And I say that, it sounds like a derogatory term.
They're not like hippie. They're not hippie
It's not an Earthship.
house
Yeah, it
looking
doesn't.
things.
Right.
It can be very aesthetically
Very modern, architectural. Yeah. Yeah. And so I think that has been, bringing the Easy system to the United States, a mechanized installation for what is traditionally a very manual, labor intensive method of insulating a home, and then finding ways to work it into what's happening with modern, high performance building science. That's the way I refer to this. You won't hear me call it natural building, although absolutely, yes, 100% it is natural building. Natural building evokes straw bale, light straw, clay, adobe, things like that, earthships, which is a really quick way to incense a code enforcement official or a design professional by saying natural building. They shudder and the hair stands up on their neck. What we're really doing is high performance, right? Why are we doing this? I don't think we've talked about that yet. What makes it a better building material? Incredible thermal resistance, sound deadening applications, like you said, low VOC, non-toxic, modern health crisis. I believe that building sickness is a relatively undiagnosed or underdiagnosed modern health crisis. The majority of our clients come to us for two reasons: material performance and material health. These are people who have had and have identified in their own lives a mold sensitivity. Maybe they had an event, a mold toxicity event, where they ended up in the hospital, and then realized that it was mold that was growing in their home that made them so sick. We're all sensitive to it.
Yeah, we are.
We really are. And it goes underdiagnosed quite often. And I've said this on multiple different platforms, but why do you feel like crap all the time when you eat healthy, you exercise? Hardly anybody smokes anymore. We all understand that alcohol is bad. We've been taught to, seek out organic produce, things like that. Why do you feel like crap all the time? Well, it might be your house, right? It might be the building materials in your home. The interior air quality, the formaldehyde in the drywall, the VOCs in the paint and the sealants and the carpet. I mean, literally, we are surrounded by it. And when you go into a hardware store and you turn over that piece of plywood or that, that piece of drywall, there's no sticker on there listing all of the horrible things that are in it.
Yeah.
It's unlike going to the grocery store nowadays where you have to really be ignoring what you're putting in your body to introduce toxic things directly into your food and your daily habits, right? But with building materials, it's not like that. We don't assign the proper value to it. And so that, starting our business in 2019 and then stepping right into COVID, thought, hey, we made a huge mistake here.
Yeah.
What a terrible time to start a business. I think the realities of the pandemic really forced people to be more intentional in a lot of ways, right? And we were forced to sit inside for 2 weeks, right? We were all at home for 2 weeks. I don't care what you do. It was the first time for a lot of people they had 2 weeks uninterrupted to sit there and stare at their home, right?
Not on vacation.
Not on vacation.
Yeah. And for a lot of people, it was a lot longer than 2 weeks. It was like 2 years.
Some people still haven't gone back to work, some people are still working from home.
Yeah.
And so I think that propelled us in a lot of ways where people became more intentional about the living space.
Yeah.
And they started to understand it.
Some of the details a little bit more.
Right. So it's not the cannabis faithful that come to us to insulate their homes.
Yeah.
It is by and large people who are concerned with the cost of ownership of their home, right? Material performance, high performance construction. That's where we live. And then we're also in the healthy material space, right? Like this is a incredibly better material to be sleeping next to put your children near as compared to most everything that's in a hardware store that's in a new construction home.
Yeah.
And that, I think, and I'll stop here, that I think is one of the biggest things that the American consumer needs to be re-educated about, just like we did with organic produce, right? We were successful in getting people to understand that organic produce is better for you, right? People now understand that things like glyphosate are not good in your produce, right? You don't want to buy produce that's been grown like that. And it's quite available now, right? It used to be very expensive. You had to join a CSA or shop at a high-end, food outlet to find it. Now it's pretty accessible. Same thing needs to happen with the house. We place the value of a home on fit and finish, right? Does it have hardwood floors? Is there granite countertops? Are there nice appliances, right? All of those things I just mentioned will be outdated in 15 years. You'll be looking at remodeling and stripping all those things out of your home. What's in the wall? That's where the value is, right?
Yeah, the walls and
the envelope.
A lot of the building materials are kind of an afterthought.
Absolutely. A $500,000+ tract builder starter home is built exactly the same way as an affordable housing Habitat for Humanity type of home. Yeah. And that's not a condemnation of Habitat for Humanity. Their goal is to get as many people under roof as possible. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, that's noble. I'm not saying that Habitat is doing something wrong. Yeah. But
there's
the big builders most certainly are, because there are much better choices they can make. Even if it's not hempcrete, there's much better choices that can be made. And I think as consumers, we need to be aware of that.
Yeah. I am interested in hearing some more of your work that you've done to help facilitate the advancement of the quality of building materials. You guys received a grant from the U.S. military to codify some of the uses of hemp in the U.S. building code.
So the building code effort was done via the U.S. Hemp Building Association. When I was a member of the board of directors there, I participated in that organization with one goal, essentially to make sure that we produced a residential building code appendix for hempcrete. Now, that is not to say that I was having a hard time getting projects approved without it.
Yeah.
I think that was a little bit of a boogeyman that was sort of self-imposed on the hemp industry. Well, the code enforcement officials are going to say, no, that's not true. Largely, that was not true. We only had one instance where, prior to the residential building code being written, where a building code official told us no. And it was in the state of New York, where there's a variance office. And that's often how these projects got done, in areas where they weren't just super rural, small code enforcement offices. Like, if there was any kind of size or weight to the code enforcement office, you just worked with them until they realized that, hey, this isn't structural. We're not framing the building out of hemp. We're not building the house out of weed.
Yeah.
It just so happens that we're replacing X, Y, and Z materials with this plant-based cellulose.
And
insulation.
so most folks may not understand that there is, when you build any structure, any kind of building that human beings are living in or working in, there is a book.
Yep.
And it's like a big book.
Yes.
Thick. And that defines all of the way, like where an outlet needs to be, how a window needs to be framed out, what materials can be in the walls, what materials can be on the exterior of the building. And one of the things that can lubricate the industry being resurrected and using these materials in building is to actually have something specifically regarding
to have your own
hemp
chapter in that book.
In that book.
Yeah. Yep.
And so you accomplished that.
I worked with a small team. It was led by a friend of mine named Jacob Waddell. He was the president of the USHBA at that time. And under Jacob, we raised around $50,000 to hire a trio of consultants: Martin Hammer, David Eisenberg, and Anthony Dente. These three, I call them the fairy godfathers of the bio-based building industry, participated in the creation of a residential building code appendix for straw bale, light straw clay adobe, tiny home, and now hempcrete, or hemp lime as it's more prescriptively called. And to your point, code enforcement exists to preserve health and human safety.
Yeah.
And without prescriptive guidance for a certain building material or style, it's very difficult for a code enforcement officer to ensure that the home is healthy and safe.
Yeah, because when you are applying to build something, you're talking to the local township, the local code enforcement officer, and they are referring to this book that's a federally distributed book, nationally distributed book. So, and they're just a small town, code enforcement officer. They don't, they can, but they most likely are not going to want to buck the system. And they're going to refer to that. So in order to make it widespread that this is something that's acceptable and here's how to do it, you need to have something in there. So now that you were able to successfully do that, every small town across the United States that code enforcement officer can refer to how hemp can be applied in this specific way. There are other ways potentially that hemp could be used as a building material that are not in there yet.
More traditional, if you will. Yeah, like a flooring product or a bat insulation or something like that. But the important thing to note, and this is getting in the weeds a little bit on code enforcement, is that additions to the residential building code work in cycles. So this appendix was added in 2024. Many states and municipalities are on the 2018 or 21 cycles. So
they don't have the most recent copy.
The mere existence of an ICC committee approved appendix, regardless of whether or not your state is up to date on the latest, the mere existence of that prescriptive guidance has been wonderful. Yeah. Absolutely wonderful. There are two unique places in the country that have made an early acceptance, if you will, a full acceptance of that building code. One is the city of Austin in Texas, and the other is the state of Minnesota. Both of those were the result of an effort that was mounted by people in our industry to go and lobby their code enforcement officials or their code enforcement structure to say, hey, we want you to accept and recognize this code. And it was very easy for them to do that because it was already approved by the ICC committee. And not even that it was approved, it wasn't contested.
Yeah.
It was 7 out of 10 votes in favor. So it's not like it was
controversial.
It wasn't
all,
controversial,
really. Yeah.
Right? And so having that code makes it much easier, especially if you live in Austin, Texas, or in the state of Minnesota. But slowly but surely, other states and municipalities will accept that code as well, just by natural course. So
yeah.
That effort, again, I was part of a small team led by Jacob. We actually sat down, worked with the consultants. They didn't tell us what to write. They told us how to write what we needed to say. Mm-hmm. Right? And so that resulted in 2021, I believe, was when the ICC committee voted to accept it. And then it was then included in the 2024 cycle. So recently, as you mentioned, we, in the last 3 years, we were awarded a $2 million direct phase 2 U.S. Army SBIR. So that's the Small Business Innovation Research Program. Mm-hmm. It's a federal program. There is a website for anyone who's interested, sbir.gov. It covers almost every office within the federal government, Department of Energy, Department of Health, National Science Foundation, all 5 of the branches of the U.S. military. Even the DOT has an SBIR program. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's a really, really wonderful thing. It's based on the amount of federal dollars that are given to each of those organizations for research. A certain portion has to be set aside for a small business, right? So you as a small business owner in the United States, you have the opportunity to apply for and receive some of that research funding that's being given by the federal government to all of those different entities, right? They're highly competitive, but it's a fantastic program. And I would encourage anybody who's entrepreneurial and listening to the podcast, look into it.
Yeah.
Great opportunity. But for us, we use that money to do a variety of different research topics. One of which was, as you mentioned, fire testing. So one of the big things that, again, one of these hempster myths people always say about hempcrete, well, it's fireproof. First of all, nothing is fireproof.
Yeah.
Certain building materials are more resistant to fire than others. Hempcrete just so happens to be one that is pretty highly fire resistant, right?
Yeah.
But we didn't have good documentation, at least in the United States, on that. So one of the big things we did was 3 1-hour rated wall assemblies. So we now have 3 wall assembly details that are rated for 1-hour fire resistance. And why is that important? Multifamily dwellings, any livable unit that has a party wall that separates it needs to have at least a 1-hour fire rating in between those walls, right? So now we have 3 different ways that we can speak to bigger developers to say, hey, you can use this material as your party wall, as your firewall. That information was then taken with those same consultants that we hired to write the code in front of the ICC committee again, just this past fall. And we proposed that they include that fire resistance data directly in the residential building code appendix for hempcrete. Mm-hmm. Now, as Martin described it, that was important not just for hempcrete, but for all of the natural building appendices to have ASTM E119 1-hour fire resistance data be included in a residential building code appendix for a bio-based building material. That has implications that are larger even than just for the hempcrete industry. So that was one of the things we did. We also used that money to do continued research with Penn State, where we rigged an array of sensors into 5 different projects of ours around the country. These are finished homes. We monitored temperature and humidity data, and we also did in-field performance metrics, right? Like testing the finished wall assembly outside of the laboratory. What is this finished wall? How is this finished wall performing? Really compelling data coming from that. 30 to 70% reduction in heating and cooling costs. Super high quality interior air quality, right? Like almost perfect. No VOCs. Perfect humidity. Not good for mold growth, but perfect for human inhabitants. Really compelling data. We also use the money for Americanizing our binder. So we now have, like I mentioned earlier, we have our blending and bagging partner in Northampton, PA now. So that was part of that effort as well. So I think that the SBIR program gets a bad rep for companies who know how to win those awards, but have no intention
gaming the system
whatsoever of commercializing the technology. We were, I think, one of the rare options where we were an existing company who was, skin in the game, right? And so that's why we were able to go direct to phase 2, skip phase 1, go direct to phase 2. And even the people that were in charge of our SBIR was actually the Corps of Engineers. That's our representative was a material scientist within the Corps of Engineers. They were really excited about what we were doing. And number one, because we were actually using the money to do what we said we were going to do, but also the implications for the built environment. It was really exciting to them.
But you were, that's admirable too, that you're not just grant harvesting, but you are actually paving the way for other businesses to, like, you are resurrecting an industry. Anyone who is working in the hemp industry is attempting to resurrect an industry in the US.
Right.
And there are a lot of insurmountable hurdles in order to facilitate that growth. But this is something that it's benefiting you and your business, but you're also using that momentum to create a path for other people to follow along and to other businesses. For example, the folks that you sell your Irizi in the hempcrete installation machine, they can now much more easily be able to work with a local architect or contractor or individual who wants to build something in their municipality around the US and be able to point to the building code, the fire safety ratings, and say, look, this is not crazy. What we're trying to do, it's very different and innovative, but there's also science to back up that this is a valid thing for us
precedence,
to do.
Right? There's proof of concept, there's precedence. And I've said it before, yes, everything I do 100% is self-serving. I needed a residential building code appendix for my own business. That was beneficial to me. I needed 1 hour fire resistance testing data. I needed all of these things, but I did it and I participated in it in a way that was beneficial for the entire industry. The residential building code appendix, there is not a single line in that appendix that says or implies that spray application is superior to hand casting, or that hand casting is inferior as compared to a precast element like a block or a panel. All of the methods are presented equally. There is nothing that implies one is superior to the other. In the case of the fire resistance data, the 3 wall assemblies, which are details, right? Like where and how are the things assembled in the wall, were taken directly from the residential building code appendix. And that's why it made sense to enter our fire resistance data. Yes, it was executed with the Irizi system, but the 3 wall assemblies that we tested are the 3 wall assemblies that you find when you open the residential building code appendix for hempcrete. There are 3 architectural details showing 3 different ways to build the wall, and those are the 3 that we did. And we did that on purpose. Those are the 3 that we tested, and we did that on purpose because it created harmony and resonance with the work that had already been done, right? So yes, 100%, everything I'm doing is self-serving. There's something good for me and Americhanvre in everything that we do. Of course there is. We're building a business, right? But unlike many other industries, we're also building the industry around the business.
Yeah.
And in order for me to succeed, there has to be a pathway for my competition, right?
Yeah.
There has to be. If I'm the only one doing it, then
Yeah.
I'll be a wreck by the time I'm 50, you know? So yeah, it's been a wild ride, but
no, it's been cool to observe it. And, you know, we've been in the hemp industry as well, but in a different path in the, you know, cannabinoid CBD product space, just because that's what made sense for our skill set, our experience, our, you know, farming systems that we already had.
Yeah.
It does seem like the fiber space has the potential to be so much more widespread benefit and impact economically for agricultural operations, benefit for the land and land management, and then also obviously like all the other things we've talked about as far as human health and building, like quality building materials, domestic supply in this country, but yet it still appears that there are so many businesses that have great aspirations and great intentions within the hemp industry that struggle, and they just don't seem to be able to like make it happen. And I think that you've been very open-minded and creative in the way that you've approached different things, like saying, you know what, we're going to choose our battles. We know that there is a very consistent and quality supply of hemp from France that we can import and we can utilize. And then that thing is not something we have to worry about.
Eliminating a variable.
Well, not only a variable, but something that doesn't exist.
Right.
You at the time when you started doing that, and you could even argue to a certain degree today, you still cannot get a consistent, high quality, really clean supply of hemp hurd to the same degree that you're able to get it from France. You can't get that from the US. There's a lot of people working on it.
At least in the Northeast, for sure. It's almost absent. Yeah.
And so what is it going to take to get that? You know, I think you've contributed a lot in a lot of different ways that we've already discussed to facilitate different pieces of that supply chain in a certain, you know, industry, a certain, you know, niche of the industry. But what is it going to take? What is it going to take for other companies and other, you know, niches in the supply chain to be able to succeed? And
I think specifically starting at the top of the supply chain with the farmer, they need end users. You need 20 or 30 businesses like mine within a 150-mile radius of a facility to see a return on the investment of the infrastructure required to create a processing facility for round baled fiber industrial hemp. Right? The decortication facility, the facility that takes that round bale, splits the hurd and the fiber apart and pushes them out into, you know, secondary and tertiary processes, right? You need end users. And that's why when I saw that problem of supply, that's why I started bringing it in from France. Now, it is also very unique to us being in the Northeast, right? It is cheaper for me to bring hemp hurd across the Atlantic Ocean to Newark, New Jersey, which is an hour and a half from where we sit. It's cheaper for me to do that than for anybody further west of us, right?
Yeah.
Anybody, you know, west of the Mississippi and further, that is not an option.
Yeah, because then the shipping container needs to be loaded on a truck and driven across the country.
Right. So at that point, that's really not an option. And that is where, west of the Mississippi, where you're seeing the most advanced American processors, right? They're in Kansas or South Dakota or Montana or Texas, right? They're not on the East Coast. So it's like priming a pump, right? You need water in the pump for the pump to run. We are the pump. We have to have hemp hurd to be able to build houses. And it's someone's home. right? Again, health and human safety. This is someone's home. I'm not going to risk using a lower quality material. You see that happen often in homeowner-led projects where the homeowner decides they want hempcrete and they're going to figure out how to do that. They are free at that point to make a decision on the quality of the material that goes into their home. That has no impact on me, right? I'm a service provider. I'm the one coming and saying, here's a quality product that I will be installing. So for me, like you said, eliminating that variable of not only the hemp herd, but the installation equipment, the binder, all three of them, there's plenty of things to bloody my knuckles on and learn the hard way.
Yeah.
Those didn't have to be.
Well, you have to create the momentum, and then you can solve these other supply chain problems.
And that momentum is end users.
Yeah.
You don't have anything. We don't have an industry if there's not an end user. It's the major difference between the fiber industrial side and the cannabinoid side, right? There are end users for the cannabinoid side.
Yeah.
There is demand from the end user on the cannabinoid side to warrant the investments that you and Kara made in infrastructure and in training people and building relationships, right?
Yeah. Well, and the other thing to make note of on the fiber hemp side is that the farmers are also there.
Absolutely.
And they're ready, and
they're capable.
They know if somebody decided to flip a switch and say, we need however many thousands of acres of hemp grown this year, and we will guarantee you get paid. We did see that happen for one season in Pennsylvania. There was 2,000 acres of hemp grown.
And
most of that was fiber hemp, and it was all paid for. And the farmers of Pennsylvania said, yeah, I'll do that.
Great.
And they did it. They delivered on it in one season. Having never, most of them, 99.9% of them, having never grown hemp before.
Right.
And like that's a pretty amazing.
The farmers are not the issue. Their knowledge, their ability is not the issue. Look at Steve Groff in Lancaster County, right? Our friend Steve. 2 years ago, he grew some of the most beautiful stands of hemp. He had 60 different varieties. He's literally got 1 million pounds of hemp sitting on his farm from broken promises from end users who said, we'll use it, we'll take it, and then vanished on him. I was not one of them. Because I know he didn't have access to the decortication that we needed yet. I would absolutely be one of them, but I am not alone the solution for Steve. And he knows that. My demand might represent 150 acres at the peak per year, and you need 10 to 12,000 acres a year of demand to warrant the investment for putting in a processor, right? So no, the farmers are not the issue at all. They know how to grow it. They are capable of growing it. They have the equipment to harvest it, to plant it, all of that. And Steve is a good example of that, right? But the end user is what's missing. And that's what Steve would tell you if he was sitting here right now. He'd say, I have 1 million pounds of it. I can't get rid of it.
It's basically the end use from a manufacturing or building supply, but also the middle step of like the decortication and processing, which there are people doing that and people that have tried and failed.
Right.
But being able to have that quality, consistent input agricultural material enter into that processing facility, and then something be able to come out of the other end of that processing facility that is a usable material that for fabrics and
composite wood products, plastics, paper, you name it. You made a good point earlier, and I feel like that is one of the things that I was so confused by in 2019, going to a hemp event in Pennsylvania with 250, 300 people, 60, 70% Amish, right? Literally 90% of the people that were at that event, 200 of the 250 people plus were there for cannabinoid CBD. And again, the Amish community, they're interested in growing CBD. That was a wild thing to see because even for the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture, they thought for sure that the Amish community would be interested in the utilitarian applications for fiber industrial hemp, all the things that we just named. The reality is that in Pennsylvania, we are specialty crop farmers, right? We are small acreage, high dollar value farmers, right? We don't have the soaring acreage that you find, going further west, and 10 and 20,000 acre farms monocropping corn and soy, right?
Yeah.
For the most part, and especially within the Amish community, it's specialty crops.
Yeah.
Tobacco, flowers.
That's
right?
what I found is the Amish and Mennonite community would like to stop growing tobacco.
Right.
But there's a predictability to the growth and harvest and drying and saleability of it.
Low
There's
acre,
tobacco,
high dollar value.
Yeah. We have the tobacco cooperatives here in Pennsylvania and Lancaster, and they can produce a crop that's in excess of like $20,000 an acre. It's higher. It's obviously higher labor than a typical field crop, like hay or corn or soybeans or something like that. But they are willing to do a couple acres of that every year as a nice little cash cow.
Right.
And all they were looking for is, if there's something that we can feel better about, that this is not unhealthy.
Right.
This crop is not unhealthy for the world. And we can grow something that is of a similar value per acre yield, then they will happily grow something other than tobacco.
Right. And again, surprising to the Department of Agriculture, I guess, in a way, in that the Amish community doesn't necessarily like spin their own yarn anymore or make their own paper or, things that you would assume a highly self-sufficient community would be interested in a fiber industrial hemp plant. Wasn't really the draw for them.
No, they're not looking to use it. They are looking to farm. They just want
they're farmers. They're real farmers, and
that's
how they make their living.
There are plenty that are entrepreneurial to a different degree, where they're doing value-added products and side businesses, like meat processing facilities or things like that. But
if there was somewhere to process it, though, the fiber industrial, I have no doubt that Lancaster County would be covered in hemp again.
But they focus on something that is tried and true, and there's a lot of skepticism to new trendy fad type things,
especially now.
Even if it doesn't matter what it is, even if it's a good thing, they are still going to approach it with some skepticism, and they're going to mitigate risk and only expose their business to so much risk.
Right.
But we could keep talking about hemp for a long time, and I think that it's great. What's your website? I'll put that in the show notes, and some of the other things you mentioned. And what are some other resources that you would recommend for folks who want to find out more about hemp or sustainable building materials? And
well, here locally, we have the Rodale Institute, as many of you know. They've been focused on working fiber industrial hemp into their no-till regenerative crop rotation for, I think, as long as anyone in the country now. They were actually one of the first, I think in 2015, following an Obama farm bill that sort of opened the door for states to have pilot programs. So the Rodale Institute, certainly from the agricultural aspect, farming aspect, if anybody's interested, they have some great data there on how to work it into your no-till
crop rotation.
Certainly, we're on all the socials. You can find me in a great many different places online. And then if you are more interested, if you're a design professional or a builder developer and you're more interested in learning more about bio-based building materials, there is the Bio-Based Material Collective, the BBMC, which meets annually in person and also does weekly and monthly meetings online. They were started here in the Northeast in Massachusetts, Boston area. Great resource for learning more, for networking, finding like-minded individuals. Yeah, I think that's about it. Lancaster Farming Podcast as well, Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast. They are a great place to learn more about fiber industrial hemp if you're interested specifically in that. Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, brother.